recognize. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. You know, the last time this committee received testimony from Mr. Becker, the CEO of Silicon Valley Bank, he was lobbying Congress, us, to do away with the Dodd-Frank rules designed to protect our nation's banking system. Now, unfortunately, too many people in Congress listened, and now here we are, 3 bank collapses later, picking up the pieces of Mr. Becker's successful efforts at deregulation. In recent reviews of the failures of SVB and Signature Bank, regulators found that weakened bank rules helped cause this crisis. They also found that each of the witnesses here today were repeatedly warned that their extreme risk-taking was dangerous. Now, instead of paying attention to those warnings, Mr. Becker, Mr. Shea, and Mr. Howell took on more risks so they could boost their own paychecks. Mr. Becker, you were SVB CEO from 2011 until it failed in March. In 2019, the year after Congress gave you what you wanted and voted to weaken the banking system's guardrails, you got a 35% pay bump. Not bad for a single year. In fact, your pay increased by nearly $3 million. Now, that same year that you got the pay bump, nearly 5 years ago now, how many active supervisory issues had the Fed identified and warned your bank about?
Senator, I don't recall the specific number that we would have had in 2019.
Well, you ran the bank, Mr. Becker. Do you want to take a guess? 1, 2, a dozen?
I would guess it would be in the 10 to 15.
Well, 17. Same year, you got a $10 million paycheck. The Fed had warned SVB of 17 unresolved supervisory issues. Now, your bank had issues with capital planning. It had issues with liquidity risk management. And the bulk of the issues identified by the Fed focused on weak governance. It was a litany of management failures. By the time SVB failed more than 4 years later, it had 31 unresolved. That's what the public record shows. 31 unresolved supervisory issues. But the big paychecks for you kept rolling in. During that 4-year period, you collected almost $40 billion. Mr. Becker, the collapse of your bank cost the FDIC fund about $20 billion, money that someone is going to have to make up. Big banks, community banks, depositors, consumers, somebody. So I want to know about basic accountability. How much of the $40 million that you earned from loading up SVB Bank with risk are you planning to return to the FDIC?
Senator, if I could clarify one point, and then I'll answer your question. Compensation, I know there's been a lot of discussion about, is it long-term or short-term, and it's short-term focused.
I have a very simple question. You cost the FDIC fund $20 billion. You made $400 million doing that. How much are you planning to return to the fund?
Senator, I disagree with the number you just quoted. But
what, you don't, that's not your paycheck? Or it's not how much it costs the FDIC? Those are both a matter of public record. How much are you planning to return to the fund?
Senator, the number you just quoted was $400 million.
$40 million, sorry. $40 million.
I was disagreeing with that.
How much of the $40 million are you planning to return? How many times are we going to do this dance?
Senator, I promise to cooperate with the regulators as they do.
Are you planning to return a single nickel to what you cost the fund?
Senator, I know there's going to be a process review of compensation.
I'll take that as a no. All right, so let's turn to our next one, Mr. Shea. Mr. Shea, Signature Bank's leadership was right there with Mr. Becker. Mr. Shea, you were the chair of Signature's board for the entirety of its 22-year existence. I understand you were also the chair of the Risk Committee for 22 years. So let me ask you, in 2019, once Congress weakened the laws, how many formal warnings from the FDIC about your bank's liquidity risk management issues were outstanding? Don't know? Does number 18 sound right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. In fact, you were still chair of the risk committee in 2020, 2021, and 2022 when Signature received more warnings from the FDIC and, quote, never adequately addressed the liquidity risk management concerns. So from 2019 to 2023, while the FDIC identified an additional 45 liquidity risk issues, you racked up more than $20 million in pay. So, Mr. Shea, the collapse of your bank cost the FDIC fund $2.5 billion. So, how much of the $20 million that you earned from loading up Signature Bank with risk are you planning to return to the FDIC?
I believe that Signature Bank was a responsible managed bank, solvent until the end.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. Your opinion on what is a responsibly managed bank is now laughable. So you're planning to return how much?
The answer is
none. That's it?
I am not planning to do so, no.
Okay, so here's the thing. Right now, the law says that people like Mr. Becker and Mr. Shea can come to Washington, they can lobby for weaker bank regulations, they can load up their banks with risk, they can pay themselves tens of millions of dollars in bonuses and stock options, and when the banks blow up, Mr. Becker and Mr. Shea get to keep all the money, and that is just plain wrong. And if we don't fix it, every CEO for these multi-billion-dollar banks will keep right on loading up on risks and blowing up banks, and everybody else is going to have to pay for it. And that is why Senator Cortez Masto and Senator Hawley and Senator Braun and I have introduced a bill to claw back these crazy paychecks and make it just a little less profitable for bank CEOs to blow up the banking system. I'm working with a bipartisan group right here on the banking committee, and I hope Congress does the right thing and that we get to mark this bill up. I ask respectfully as soon as possible.
Senator Warren,
thank you.
Expired.
Now, see, this is the reason why I voted for Elizabeth Warren for president until she got to the point where she wasn't a contender and it was just Trump and Biden. And all of you people who wanted Trump and are saying that Trump makes so much money for everybody, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. Not only would she have put regulations in to protect our money in the bank, she's also for reparations. So I don't know why black people did not put their support behind Elizabeth Warren, because Donald Trump called her Pocahontas and everybody thought that was funny. The lady does have Indians, Native Americans in her background. Most people do. Y'all got to start thinking and vote with your wallet, not with your heart or your head.
Senator Vance of Ohio is recognized.